Shalom Chavrim, I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live. Very disturbing article came out on RT today. 2 years of Russia in Syria. ISIS shrinking. Iran and Turkey linking conflict risk with U.S. lurking. That's a very provocative message indeed there. In the article here it states that this Saturday marks the end of the second year of Russian military operation in Syria. It's seen some setbacks, a few major victories, the potential to end the bloody conflict and the risk of rapid descent into a conflict between Russia and the U.S. Russia's campaign in Syria was officially launched, of course, September 30th, 2015, following several weeks of preparing a base of operations near Latvia and transporting military assets there. Acting on requests from the Syrian government, Moscow said its involvement was necessary to prevent jihadist forces from taking over the country and turning it into a major hotbed of terrorism, which would threaten Russia as well as other countries. All right, now, then we go into, it goes into all the issues there with the capture of Aleppo, the different fights that they've been doing there, Palmyra, the loss and recapture of Palmyra, we remember that so well. Now Deir ez-Zor, and here it comes here. The current focus for Damascus and Russia is Deir ez-Zor, governorate in the eastern of Syria. The eponymous provincial capital remained under ISIS siege for years, with the militants controlling the rural part of the province and the outskirts of the city and the government. Okay, the loyalists holding the center with supply lines cut by the blockade, and the garrison held to rely on high-altitude airdrops to continue fighting. The blockade was finally lifted September of 2017, a development that Russia considers a turning point in the defeat of ISIS in Syria. At the moment, some 87% of the Syrian territory is under control of Damascus, right? Now, the Deir ez-Zor offensive also marked the most significant loss by the Russian military in its modern history. Lieutenant General Valery Aspov, the senior member in the group of the Russian advisors helping the Syrian army, was killed along with 2 aides in shelling. They increased the number of troops killed during the operation reported by Defense Ministry to 35. Now, of course, Deir ez-Zor is a very, very touchy place for Russia, because that's where Russia suffered about 12 special forces killed when the U.S. coalition was attacking so-called ISIS members, but instead was targeting the Syrian Arab army there when they were making great gains about a year ago. But he goes on to say, U.S. boots on the ground. U.S. presidential Donald Trump, many broken election promises, including changing the Obama-era policy on Syria and striking a deal with Russia to defeat ISIS together. What happened instead is more U.S. involvement in Syria and increased risk of an armed conflict with Russia. The new U.S. administration's Syria campaign started with an incident in Khan Sheikhoun, a small town in Idlib governorate controlled by the rebels. The incident was described to the White House as a chemical weapons attack by the Syrian government, with the media uncritically supporting the narrative while dismissing the evidence and arguments to the contrary. So far, no one-site inspections of the alleged attack site international inspectors has been conducted. This is what we were bringing out to you guys the other day. Russia was never involved in this. This was done on the side by a bunch of other so-called researchers there, with absolutely no bona fide evidence to prove that Bashar al-Assad gassed his own people. But, as he states here, Trump milked the incident to get a moment of almost universal domestic praise when he ordered a barrage of Tomahawk cruise missiles to obliterate the airbase from which the supposed attack was launched. He even bragged about it visiting Chinese President Xi Jinping, who didn't comment on whether he appreciated the after-dinner entertainment. The Tomahawk show of force reportedly had a minimal effect on Damascus military capabilities. It has also paved the way for a much stronger U.S. presence on the ground in Syria. Under the Obama, it was limited to a small-scale missions of special operation forces, but Trump allowed the Pentagon to send in the U.S. Marines along with artillery and other heavy weapons, de facto occupying part of Syria. Now, here comes the issue. Conflict with Russia looming. The Americans are propping up the Syrian Democratic Force, a coalition of militia dominated by Kurdish fighters, which the U.S. chose over Turks to lay a siege on Raqqa. The decision further strained Washington's relations with its NATO ally, which sees an empowerment of Kurds in Syria and or Iraq as an indirect support of a Kurdish guerrillas in its own territory. American support of the Kurdish militias is nothing new, but Trump's move seems to have alienated Ankara enough for it to imply that Turkey may need to shoot down American-made warplanes. That's not good. Now, the weird thing is, though, I've never trusted Erdogan to begin with, because Erdogan was very much rallying behind the U.S. when President Trump bombed Syria. So Erdogan doesn't love Syria either. He hates Bashar al-Assad. He's very much on Trump's side when it comes to that. But when it comes to this issue with the Kurds, he hates the Kurds with a passion. And the U.S. never cared about the Kurds either until it became, well, you know, politically advantageous to the president to make sure that the Kurds gain territory in eastern Syria there in order to gain control of all the oil fields there. So it's all about money to begin with. That's all it's about, just about money. So more importantly, the SDF has its own agenda, which goes beyond defeating ISIS, and it puts at odds with the Syrian army. Oil fields in Deir ez-Zor government may still be under jihadist control, but whichever side manages to capture them will have better chances of keeping them and profiting from the extraction in the future. So see, this is why the U.S. is there. Tensions between the local players apparently spills out their foreign backers. The tone of Russian Defense Ministry reports on the Syrian campaign have been turning increasingly hostile towards the U.S. this month. Moscow laid the blame on Washington for triggering last week's surprise jihadist offensive from Idlib government, which put 36 Russian military police troops at risk of being captured or killed. We're getting ready to come to blows, friends, and I don't think anybody's paying attention to how serious this is between Russia and the United States right now. They have almost come to blows head on and no longer just being between the two different factions that they're both backing. Very serious. And then North Korea. We got a major issue happening in North Korea right now. South Korea on emergency alert. This just happened a couple of hours ago. Emergency alert when U.S. bombers buzz in LL. Southern Korean warships and fighter jets were on standby south of the land and sea border on the night of September the 23rd. Well, actually, I'm sorry. This is just being published now is what it is. When the U.S. B-1 strategic bomber and F-15C fighter escorts buzzed the North Korean maritime border, it emerged on Thursday. This suggests that worried that the situation was touch and go and could have resulted in armed conflict, and North Korea tried to shoot the fighter jets down. According to the senior military official, South Korean F-15 and KF-16 fighter jets were scrambled at a dead of night and began flying patrol near the demilitarized zone and the northern limit line, the de facto border in the Eastern Sea. So, you know, the thing is, it really gets me. I realize Kim Jong-un isn't the greatest guy in the world with all the nuclear weapons, but, you know, we have the nuclear weapons too, so it's not like say we don't. And so does Russia, so does so many countries in the world. But, of course, Kim Jong is talking about blasting the United States out of the water with it. But the thing that really troubles me then, why do we keep provoking the guy intentionally? It makes no sense to keep provoking this guy. You will never come to a table, get this man to come to a table as long as you just keep provoking him. So if the U.S. threatens, another article here, U.S. Threatens us, says North Korea, we will make them pay with our nukes, says North Korean official. You know, they're just a little bitty nation over there. They got a strange dictator ruling the country, but they don't have anything else but nukes to fight back with. So it says, as Moscow received a high-level negotiator to discuss North Korea's nuclear program, Pyongyang's ambassador to Russia insisted that the Asian country is not backing down from its vow to deploy force if necessary. So it really seems to me in a way that North Korea is not intending to do a preemptive strike on the U.S., but they're also not willing to continue to be bullied around. That's the other issue I see here too. If the U.S. behaves in ways that deny our state's right to exist, our republic, as our Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un has said, will make them pay in full by the just power of our nuclear arsenal, Ambassador Kim Yogi-yae said on Saturday during a Moscow conference dedicated to peace on the Korean Peninsula and the future reunification of its two states. You know, the thing is, friends, that really concerns me, we could have a massive war break out there and not know why until after it's done. This is one reason why I continue to go back, and let me just share this with you. It's very important that we realize this. I continually take you guys back to the prophecy here in Daniel, all right? And you know it full well. Daniel chapter 11, verse 44. Tidings out of the east and out of the west, they trouble him, all right? Now, North Korea has nothing to do with the king of the north. We know that. But it says, but tidings out of the east and out of the north shall affright him, and he shall go forth with great fury to destroy, not only to take away many. So this king of the north, which works hand in hand with the Vatican, we know that, is very troubled about the fact that China and Russia are in behind Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un is part of the East. He's not really anything to do with North or East. He's part of the East. And this is troubling the NATO leaders. And so what they're going to do, they're going to use that as a catalyst to just kill unbelievable scores of people. That's why it says right there that he's going to kill. They're going to take away many, Rabbaim. It's not good, friends, and it's not looking good. I wish that could be a better news, and the only good news I know is that of the gospel of Yeshua. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Shalom.